Hello, I'm Nancy Strickland, and this video will show you how to give your Windows 7 application the ability to automatically restart itself in case of a crash. I'm going to do this demo in C#, and I'll post both the C# and the Visual Basic code on my blog. I'll give you the address at the end of this video. Now before I started, I did some setup. I installed the Windows API Code Pack, which gives you some useful managed wrappers and which you can download from MSDN, and I started a new Windows Form app in C# here. Now I added two projects from the API Code Pack into this project. One is Core, which has basic interop functions, and it also has some basic code that the Shell project here depends on, and the Shell project has code for components that are related to the Windows 7 shell. And then in my own project here, I added a reference to each of those projects. I also created my user interface. All it has a button labeled Crash. When I click the Crash button, I want the application to crash, and then I'm going to add some code so that it will self-recover. There's nothing else in this app except the ability to crash, but it could be anything, of course. Now over here in the properties of this Crash button, you can see that when it starts, it's not going to be enabled. I'll also need a timer, so I've already dragged one onto the form, and you can see in its properties that the interval is set to 1,000 to 1 second, 1,000 milliseconds, and that it is already enabled. Enabled is set to true. Now that's because what I'm going to demo, recovery from a crash, can't be done until the application has been running for 60 seconds. That's to keep from setting off an endless cycle of immediately crashes right after an application starts, and then that causes a recovery, and then immediately they crash again, and so on. And so in our demo, we're going to start the app running, and then after 60 seconds by the timer, the crash button is going to be enabled, and then when I click it, you'll see the Windows Error Reporting Service restart the app. So let me go to that timer's click event to show you that on the tick every second, it's going to check to see if 60 seconds has passed yet, and it does that by subtracting the start time from now, and the start time here was set up as a private variable here in the class, and it was set to the time that the application started. So after 60 seconds has passed, then button 1, which is my crash button, will become enabled. Okay, so that was my setup, and now I'm going to program the crash. I'll just double click the crash button, and I'll add the code. This fail fast function is a way to terminate a process to kill an application without executing any exception blocks, any try catches, or any finalizers. The argument to it is going to be written, this argument just testing, is going to be written to the Windows Application Event Log, and it's sent to Microsoft as part of the error reporting collection. So we're going to write something here just to show that there's nothing important here. It's just testing. And now I need to add a few using statements. I'm going to be using a timer, so I'm going to be using timers and threading, and then this is what I need out of the code pack. And now all that's left is to actually set the application up so it can restart. It's just one little line, and I'm going to put it here in the constructor. Now we're going to use the application restart and recovery manager, register for restart, and the argument to that is an instance of the restart settings class, which I'm instantiating right here in place. And the parameters for its constructor are first a little string that's a command line option to any restart. I don't have any in this particular case. And then the second argument is one or more flags from the restart restrictions enumeration. You OR them together like I've done here with a logical OR pipe right here. And that shows when not to do a restart. So in this case, it's saying don't do the restart when the user does a deliberate reboot or when the machine's being restarted after you just installed an update. And you can select any of these restrictions you want or none. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to test it now. Now when I run it, it's important that I start it without debugging. So I can either use Control F5 or select it from the menu like this. That's because when there's an error, what I don't want is for the debugger to catch it and stop. I want it to go ahead and crash. Now all I have to do is wait for 1 minute, because remember that Windows Error Reporting, which is what handles recoveries, won't try to do a recovery if an app's been running for less time than that. When the timer passes 60, then my crash button is going to be enabled, and I'll click it. So I'm going to cut a little time here so it'll go a little faster. Okay, time's up. I click it, the application crashes, and here's the crash dialog. Now, I can choose to try to debug, but of course most users are just going to restart. If I choose check online and restart, then Microsoft has sent a problem report, and if that report helps Microsoft find a solution, then you can get information about that solution, maybe a link to another site. There certainly isn't a solution for our demo crash, or for lots of crashes for that matter, but there could be in cases. So now I'm ready to select restart. And there it is. It's restarted automatically. You can tell that in part because the button's disabled again. So it's very easy, huh? It's also possible to add the ability to save state when the application crashes, so that that state can be restored as part of the restart process. That's called recovery. I don't have time to cover recovery within the 7-minute limit for videos in this 7 in 7 series, but I'll refer you to another video on MS Dev that covers both restart and recovery. You can just do a search for it on MS Dev. For now, we're done, because I've shown you how to make your application more robust with automatic restart in less than 7 minutes.